The footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door, and in that silence, I understood three things. He could walk. He'd always been able to walk, and someone was coming to kill us both. For 3 years, Naima believed she knew every sound in the manor. The creak of the eastern staircase at dawn, the whisper of wind through the garden doors, the distant hum of the kitchen at night. But footsteps in the East Wing hallway outside her bedroom at 12:17 a.m.? That sound was impossible, because the man she cared for, the man she'd bathed, moved, loved in silence, hadn't walked since the day they met. If you're ready for a love story built on secrets, sacrifice, and the courage to stand when everything says fall, hit that subscribe button now. This story will break your heart before it puts it back together. The door handle turned slowly. Naima sat upright in bed, moonlight cutting across her dark skin, illuminating the terror in her eyes. Her heart hammered against her ribs as the door opened and a tall silhouette filled the frame. Baek Hyun-Woo? His name left her lips like a prayer she no longer believed in. He stepped forward into the silver light. The man she'd pushed in a wheelchair for 3 years, cold, untouchable, supposedly paralyzed from the waist down, was walking, not limping, not stumbling, walking toward her with the grace of someone who'd never been broken at all. "Close your mouth, Naima." His voice was low, edged with something she'd never heard before. Not the polite distance he'd maintained for 3 years. This was raw, desperate. "We both know you have questions." She scrambled back against the headboard, her nursing uniform still folded on the chair where she'd left it hours ago. 3 years of reality shattered in the space between his footsteps. "This isn't real. You can't. You're paralyzed. The accident. The doctor said what I needed them to say." He sat on the edge of her bed, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his face, the way his jaw clenched like he was holding back years of words. "What I needed everyone to believe." Her hand found the lamp on her nightstand, not for light, for a weapon, for anything solid in a world that suddenly made no sense. "Every day, every single day, I moved your legs, bathed you, cared for you like you were—" Her voice cracked. "And you've been lying." A single tear rolled down his face. In 3 years, she'd never seen him cry, not during the painful therapy sessions, not during the nightmares when he'd wake gasping. Never. "I'm sorry." The words came out broken. "Sorry?" She laughed, bitter and sharp. "You made a fool out of me for 3 years and you're sorry?" "If I hadn't lied—" He reached for her hand but stopped himself. "If I hadn't lied, we'd both be dead right now." The room went cold. Outside she heard something, distant but growing closer. Car engines. Multiple vehicles approaching the estate gates. "What are you talking about?" He stood, moving to the window with a fluidity that made her chest ache. For 3 years, she'd imagined what it would be like to see him walk. She'd dreamed of the day he'd stand and prove the doctors wrong, but not like this. Never like this. "My half-brother threw me off Seongsan Ilchulbong 3 years ago." His voice was steady now, clinical, like he was reciting someone else's tragedy. 180 meters down into the ocean. "He thought he killed me. My former fiancé was there too. They both watched me fall." Naima's breath caught. She'd seen the scar that ran from his lower back to his shoulder. He'd told her it was from the accident. "A car crash," he'd said. "Nothing more." "I was paralyzed, truly. For 6 months, I couldn't feel anything below my waist. But then—" He turned to face her, and in his eyes she saw 3 years of isolation, of choosing survival over truth. Then feeling came back, slowly, painfully, and by then Junho had declared me dead and taken everything. "So you let me believe—" "I let everyone believe. Because if Junho knew I survived, he'd come back to finish what he started. And anyone close to me—" His gaze held hers. "Anyone I cared about would become a target." The car engines were louder now, closer. He knows now. Hyun-Woo moved toward her, urgency replacing the careful control he'd maintained for so long. And he's here for both of us. Before you find out what happens next, drop a like on this video and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what comes after this. Naima stood, her legs unsteady. Both of us? Why would he? Because I fell in love with you. The confession hung between them like something fragile and combustible. And Junho's been watching long enough to know it. 3 years collapsed into a single moment. Every time she'd sung to him while arranging his medication. Every book she'd read aloud in the garden. Every night she'd sat by his bed during thunderstorms because she noticed his hands would shake. Every whispered confession she'd made to his sleeping form, believing he couldn't hear. You heard me. It wasn't a question. 4 weeks ago, when I told you I loved you, you heard every word. I felt your hand on mine. His voice broke. I felt every touch, Naima. Every song. Every moment you thought I was somewhere unreachable. I was there. Loving you. Dying because I couldn't tell you. She slapped him. The sound echoed in the quiet room like a gunshot. He didn't move, didn't defend himself. Just stood there accepting her rage like penance. Do it again if it helps. But she couldn't, because beneath the fury was something worse. Relief. Terrible, shameful relief that he'd felt everything too. That she hadn't been alone in her love. 3 years of my life. Her voice shook. I could have been anywhere, done anything, but I stayed because I thought you needed me. I did need you. He moved closer, just a step. More than you know, you became my reason to heal, to fight, to want to stand again. The vehicles outside screeched to a halt. Through the window, she saw headlights, 5 black SUVs, men pouring out, 20, 30, armed. Hyun-Woo grabbed her hand. We need to move. Now. He led her through a door she'd never noticed, hidden behind a bookshelf that swung open at his touch. A narrow hallway stretched into darkness. She'd lived in this manner for 3 years and never knew it existed. How long have you been preparing for this? Since the day I hired you. The hallway opened into a small room lined with monitors, weapons, supplies. Security feeds showed the men outside, and on the center screen, a face she recognized from the single photo Hyun-Woo kept in his study. Baek Hyun-Woo. Handsome in an expensive suit, moving like violence wrapped in silk. Beside him, a beautiful woman with cold eyes. Your brother. Naima's voice was hollow. And that's Seoyeon, my ex-fiancé. He pulled up another screen showing the estate's security team being disarmed, surrendering without a fight. Junho bought my guards months ago, everyone except Mr. Han. An older man with a scarred face appeared on another monitor, fighting despite being outnumbered. Blood ran down his temple. Hyun-Woo spoke into a radio. Han, fall back. That's an order. The response came through static and pain. Sir, they have Ms. Naima's passport photo. They know about her. Naima's blood turned to ice. On the screen, Seoyeon held up a photo. Naima smiling in the garden, taken months ago. Junho looked at it and smiled. His voice boomed through speakers connected throughout the estate. Brother, I know you're watching. Send out the nurse, and we'll make this quick. Keep her... He smiled wider. And I'll make it slow. Hyun-Woo opened a case, handed Naima a handgun and a knife. There's a tunnel, leads to the beach, boat waiting, or I stay. He looked at her like she'd just offered him salvation and damnation in the same breath. You don't understand what staying means. I understand perfectly. She checked the gun with hands that had administered medication, changed bandages, held him through nightmares. My father was Army Rangers. He taught me 3 things: shoot straight, trust my gut, and never abandon family. We're not family, aren't we? She met his eyes. 3 years, Hyun-Woo, I know your nightmares, your fears, the way you take your tea, the scar on your shoulder you never talk about. You think I don't know you? Images flashed through her mind. Him crying silently when he thought she was asleep. The way his hand would reach for hers during storms. Him whispering thank you in Korean after she sang. That twitch in his hand when she'd confessed her love. You felt everything. She stepped closer. Every touch, every word, every single moment, his voice cracked. And it was torture because I couldn't respond. Couldn't tell you that you became everything to me, that you were the reason. I wanted to heal. An explosion. The front gates blew inward on the monitors, smoke and fire. I love you, Naima. The words rushed out like he'd been holding them underwater for years. I've loved you since you sang Amazing Grace and cried because you missed your grandmother. Since you brought jollof rice to my room because you said food is medicine for homesickness. Since you stayed. She kissed him. Quick, fierce. A promise and an accusation and a beginning all at once. Then let's make sure we both survive to have this conversation properly. He showed her the room's defenses, reinforced walls, sealed door, enough supplies for 48 hours. But his hands moved over the controls with practiced efficiency, pulling up architectural plans she'd never seen. We're not hiding. He traced routes through the manor. My father built passages throughout the estate. Junho thinks he knows this place, but he only knows what father showed him. Guerrilla warfare. Naima studied the plans. In your own home. Exactly. He handed her an earpiece. If I say run, I don't take orders well. Almost a smile. I've noticed. That's why I love you. On the monitors, Junho's men entered the manor, splitting up, searching. Seoyeon's voice came through the speakers. Hyun-Woo, darling, 3 years in a wheelchair. Did you miss me? Rage flashed across his face. Naima touched his hand, grounding him. She's baiting you. He breathed, nodded, refocused. They moved through the hidden passages, narrow corridors that smelled of dust and time. Through gaps in the walls, they watched guards search rooms, heard their conversations in Korean about the crippled brother hiding somewhere, about the American nurse who'd be fun to find. Hyun-Woo's jaw clenched at every crude comment. Naima kept her hand on his arm, steadying him. This was new, him needing her strength instead of her providing care. The shift felt seismic. They found Mr. Han in the dining hall, tied to a chair, bleeding but alive. One guard stood watch. Hyun-Woo signaled. They moved in sync, him disarming the guard, her cutting Han free with efficiency born from 3 years of patient care, translated into something sharper. Han coughed blood. Sir, they're looking for something. Files. Evidence. I know. Hyun-Woo helped him stand. Where's the safest place to hide corporate espionage evidence, Han? The old man's eyes moved to Naima. Understanding dawned on her face. My room, she breathed out. You hid evidence in my room. Under your bed in fake medical supply boxes, safest place in the manor. No one would think to look in the nurses' quarters. On the monitors, Seoyeon entered Naima's room, running her hands over furniture with something that looked like jealousy. She picked up a photo from the nightstand, Hyun-Woo smiling, rare and genuine. Seoyeon's face twisted. Tear it apart, she ordered her guards. Everything. They started destroying the room, getting closer to the bed, to the floorboards underneath, to 3 years of evidence that could destroy Junho. We have to get there first. Naima's voice was steady despite the violation she was watching. It's a trap. Hyun-Woo's hand found hers. He knows I'd come for those files. Junho appeared on screen, entering Naima's room. He looked directly at the camera and waved. Hello, brother. Come get your evidence. And your woman. I'll be waiting. He pulled a detonator from his pocket, showed it to the camera like presenting a gift. 10 minutes before I burn this wing to the ground, with everyone in it. A timer appeared. 10 to bow. 9:59. 9:58. This is suicide. Han gripped Hyun-Woo's arm. Then we die together. Naima squeezed Hyun-Woo's hand. But I'm not running. Comment below. Would you stay and fight or take the boat and run? Your answer says everything about how you love. They moved through the passages toward the west wing, the timer on Han's phone counting down. 8:45. 8:44. Guards appeared. Brief, brutal confrontation. Hyun-Woo moved like someone who'd been pretending to be helpless for so long that violence came as relief. Naima struck with precision. Nursing anatomy knowledge turned into knowing exactly where to hit to incapacitate. Han took a bullet to the leg, went down hard. Go. He pressed his radio into Hyun-Woo's hand. I'll hold here. Save her. Save yourself. Han, that's an order, sir. Blood soaked through his pants. Police are coming, Channel 7, 20 minutes out. The timer read 6:15 when they reached Naima's corridor. Smoke already visible. Junho had set preliminary fires. Her sanctuary for 3 years was burning. They entered her room. Junho and Seoyeon waited with 4 armed guards. The timer on the detonator in Junho's hand showed 4:32. There's my ghost brother, Junho smiled, and the nurse who raised the dead. Poetic, isn't it? Guns raised. Stand off. Naima felt Hyun-Woo's hand tremble slightly in hers. Not fear, rage. Let's talk about family. Junho circled them like a shark. Father loved you, the bastard son, the half-breed mistake, while I, the legitimate heir, was invisible to him. He loved you too. Hyun-Woo's voice was steady. Until you showed him who you really are. I showed him strength, Junho's composure cracked. Vision, and you wanted to make the company ethical. There's no money in ethics, brother. Seoyeon spoke up, her voice honey over poison. Tell him the truth, Junho. Tell him why we really pushed him. Seoyeon, warning in his tone. He found out about the clinical trials. She looked at Naima. The ones we falsified. 23 patients died, but their families were compensated, so it's fine, right? Naima's stomach turned. You killed people for profit. Business. Junho shrugged. Your boyfriend was going to ruin everything with his conscience. So we eliminated the problem. You're a murderer. Hyun-Woo's voice dropped to something cold and final. And you're about to be a corpse, again. Junho checked the timer. 2:15. This time, no miraculous recovery. Naima's hand moved slowly toward the knife concealed in her waistband. Seoyeon noticed. She's armed. Everything happened at once. Naima threw the knife, hit a guard's hand. His gun clattered. Hyun-Woo tackled Junho. They crashed through burning furniture. Seoyeon lunged at Naima with a shard of broken glass. They fought. Vicious. Personal. 3 years of jealousy poured into violence. He never loved you, Seoyeon slashed wildly. You were just convenient. Someone who couldn't leave. Naima disarmed her, twisted her arm behind her back. He chose truth over survival. That's more love than you ever gave him. Hyun-Woo and Junho grappled near the floorboards. The timer showed 0:47. Junho reached for the detonator. Hyun-Woo pinned his wrist. Even if you win, you lose. Junho laughed through bloody teeth. Those files burn with us. Naima pulled up the floorboards. The medical supply boxes sat there. She opened one. Empty. Looking for these? She pulled files from inside her jacket. I moved them yesterday. Something felt wrong about keeping evidence under my bed where I sleep. Junho's face drained of color. No. Timer 0:15. Run! Naima grabbed Hyun-Woo. They burst into the hallway as the explosion erupted behind them, heat and smoke and the sound of her sanctuary collapsing. Junho and Seoyeon stumbled out after them, coughing, burned, defeated. Sirens, police flooding in. Han had convinced them after all. Officers surrounded Junho and Seoyeon, guns drawn, rights being read. Junho pointed at Hyun-Woo, still screaming about rightful heirs and family betrayal. Seoyeon tried to run. They tackled her. "You can't do this," Junho's voice broke. "We're family." "You threw me off a cliff." Hyun-Woo's voice was quiet, final. "You stopped being family that day." They were dragged away, Junho still screaming. Seoyeon silent now, makeup streaked with tears and ash. Naima swayed, 3 years of tension and 3 hours of terror catching up. Hyun-Woo caught her before she fell. "Is it over?" "Almost." The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and new beginnings. Dawn light filtered through blinds. Naima sat in a chair beside Hyun-Woo's bed, smoke inhalation treatment for both of them. She held his hand, both exhausted, both alive. He woke slowly, saw her. "You stayed." "Where else would I go?" Mr. Han was in the next bed, leg in a cast, pointedly looking away to give them privacy. "I don't know how to do this." Hyun-Woo's thumb traced circles on her palm. "Be normal, honest, not hiding behind a chair and a lie. Then we learn together." She leaned forward. "No more wheelchairs between us, just us, figuring it out." "I'm going to mess this up." His voice dropped. "I've spent 3 years pretending. I don't know who I am without the act." "Then let me show you." She kissed his forehead, his cheek, finally his mouth, soft and careful, like touching something precious and fragile. "One day at a time. There's something I need to do first." 1 month later, cameras flashed as Hyun-Woo stood at a podium, Naima beside him. The press conference had been his idea. Accountability, he called it. Penance. "My name is Baek Hyun-Woo. For 3 years, I hid while my family's company caused immeasurable harm. Today, I acknowledge that pain and commit to making it right." He announced a victim compensation fund, full transparency audits, shutting down every unethical division. Reporters shouted questions. He answered everyone with brutal honesty. In the car afterward, his hands shook. That was terrifying. "You did good." She squeezed his hand. "Really good." "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have," she smiled. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." 6 months passed in heartbeats and healing. The courtroom where Junho received 25 years felt surreal. Seoyeon got 15. Neither looked at each other during sentencing. Their love had been transactional from the start. It died the moment profit disappeared. Hyun-Woo attended real physical therapy now, strengthening what had genuinely been damaged. Naima taught nursing students in Seoul, sharing her unique experience of caring for someone who became so much more. They cooked together, him learning her grandmother's recipes with endearing incompetence. She taught him to dance to Afro beats in the rebuilt manner. He was terrible. They laughed until they cried. They visited the memorial for the clinical trial victims, planted flowers. He wept openly now. She held him through it. At Mr. Han's retirement party, surrounded by actual loyal staff, Hyun-Woo caught her eye across the room, mouthed 3 words. She smiled, mouthed them back. The cliff at Cheongsan Ilchulbong looked different at sunrise, less like the place where he'd almost died, more like the place where everything changed. They stood at the edge, safely back from it, watching the sun rise over the ocean, his arm around her shoulders, her head against his chest. "I used to hate this place." His voice was soft. "Now it's where I learned what surviving really means." "You could have died here." "But I didn't. I survived. I healed." He turned to face her fully. "I found you." He pulled a small box from his pocket, traditional Korean ring inside, delicate and beautiful. "In my culture, this is a promise ring, but I want to promise you everything, my truth, my future, my whole heart. with all its scars and fears and capacity for love. He took a breath. Naima, will you? Yes. She laughed through tears. Before you finish asking. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger. They embraced as the sun fully rose, washing everything in gold. Later, much later, she would think about that moment and realize something profound. Love wasn't about perfect circumstances or convenient timing. It wasn't about one person being whole enough to save another. It was about two broken people choosing each other in the midst of chaos and saying, this messy, beautiful, terrifying thing, this is worth fighting for. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about love that survives the impossible. Comment below, have you ever loved someone you couldn't have? Tell me your story. People ask me how I trust a man who lied for 3 years. Naima's voiceover played over images of their life together. Morning coffee, evening walks, quiet moments of simply existing in the same space. I tell them I trust the man who learned to stand, not just physically, emotionally, who chose truth over survival, who loved me enough to risk everything he'd protected. The final shot lingered on them at the cliff's edge, silhouettes against the sunrise, his arm around her, her head on his shoulder. The exact spot where he almost died, now transformed into the place where they chose to live fully, honestly, together. The screen faded to black with a final question written in white text. Is it possible to forgive a lie if the truth reveals love? The answer, like all questions about love, remained beautifully, terrifyingly unresolved.